In this video lesson, we're going to continue exploring Unity, and we're going to go with the HD high definition sample, and we're going to go step by step and see what are the features here in the new engine, especially the new rendering features that are really interesting, like the ray tracing and the various effects that we can add or remove, and the management of the lining, etc., etc. So I am proceeding here with this first lesson to get started with the engine. You can see now it's loading, and it's faster when you already created a scene. Now this scene we saw this scene some lesson ago, a couple of lessons ago. So we're gonna continue from there, and so again, it's gonna be like a tour, but after we're gonna create our own scene, and we're gonna go for our own settings and lights and materials, etc. So as usual, we have tutorial section on the right, and we're gonna start, and we're gonna go through some of these steps in this video, and then we're gonna continue in other videos. And you can see that the various parts are similar to the ones that we saw in the universal render pipeline. So also in the HD render, we have visual effects, decals, HDRI, sky, fog, volumes, etc., etc. So we're gonna see something that we already saw, but like in a different fashion. So the first steps here are for the quality and performance again. So choose the correct quality to get the correct performance. And you go to edit project settings. In here, you can select the level of quality. Now, if you have a strong computer with a dedicated graphic card, you may go like into the highest, which is going to be the ray tracing real-time global illumination. Here you can click and select one of the levels. Otherwise, if you don't have a strong computer, you may want to go for the low. And there are some effects that will not display. For example, the fog will not be displayed on the low quality. So pick one. I picked the strongest and the most realistic, but also the slowest probably for computers. And this one here is ray tracing real-time GI, the 5 HDRP, so high definition render pipeline level. And you can read the suggestions here on the right side. I'm not going to go through all the information that is going to give you here, but the most important, I'm going to point out the most important thing to give you as the best, the most important things, let's say necessary. I'm going to skip like the unnecessary for the moment. Okay, so also we're going to address here the anti-aliasing, which is an effect that will address the aliasing. Now it's in the camera, so we need to go in the camera up here in the toolbar, and you have different anti-aliasing effects. So you have approximate fast, or you have temporal, and others. Now it's suggesting us to use this one here, temporal anti-alias, and also we need to do an additional thing. So we need to set always refresh right here in this other icon, the layers icon. In the layers icon, you drop it down, make sure it's activated, of course, and then we're gonna activate the always refresh. And this is gonna result in better resolution and in better quality in the simulation. Now, just to make sure you understand anti-aliasing for the ones that are not like experts, but they are beginners. So anti-aliasing is an effect that is applied everywhere in graphic, either 2D or 3D graphics. So this is how for example, an oblique line would appear normally on a screen because it's made of pixels. So it's gonna have this like stare or zigzag effect. So the anti-aliasing is adding some like blurred or let's say faded pixels beside the sharp pixels to have some more natural look and not like pixelated look. So it's another feature that you usually find in video games, and also the more quality you have in anti-aliasing, the also slowest will be the application. And now it looks really good, looks really fine. I just play the game right now, which we already saw previously. So we have another look, and you can see how everything looks pretty nice and neat. Now next in the tutorial will be the Light Explorer. Now the Light Explorer is another window that we didn't saw before, and it's a window for managing lights and also other effects related to lights. So I'm gonna go to Window, Rendering, Light Explorer, and I'm gonna expand this a little bit. So you can see now it's like the hierarchy where we have everything listed, but here we only have the light listed. So it's easier to get to the lights of your scene. And also we can see the volumes, the reflection probes, planar reflection probes, and light probes, and emissive materials. Emissive materials are another way you can illuminate your scene. So just applying an effect to the material and apply that material to an object will create kind of a lamp or an emissive object. Otherwise, we use lights. And you can see these are all the lights that are now in this scene. And considering it's a small scene, it has a lot of lights. So these can be like spotlights or can be omni lights, omnidirectional or point light, and they can be also other types, like you have directional for the sun. And then you have all the information here, like the units, the intensity, the color, and etc., the temperature. So if you select one light in here, you can also see it in the hierarchy. And once you get it in the hierarchy, you can also get it in the scene. So if you right click, you can do find references in the scene, and it's gonna show you what it is by like turning off everything else. And there you go, it's right there. It's just a little bit far away. Now to frame quickly, you can press the F key on the keyboard. F key will frame the object, and also you can do this if you, there you go, so that's the light right there. And also you can do that with the hierarchy. So you can go through all the various lights. Also going to change the shading here to make it more understandable. So this is the light right here, this is another light. So you can find it in the Light Explorer, you can find it in the hierarchy. Now also if you double click, it's going to do like kind of a frame from a distance, and then again if you double click once more, it's going to frame closely. Again, you can find the reference in the scene, and this is going to show you nothing about that particular object. You can also toggle the active state with the right click. You can toggle on and off, or also follow the shortcut keys that are indicated. Okay, so lights are going to be really important in your rendering, and we're going to come back here. These are some additional parameters for the lights and the volumes. Now, let's go on, and okay, and then you have other stuff here that you can check and documentation. So let's go in the next one, and to next. And this is for the quality. We already kind of addressed this before, so I'm gonna go next. Let's see something new. And so right here it's about setting the levels again. And this is showing you that if you change, so let's go into edit project settings and quality. So if you change from like low, you can see the fog is not visible anymore. And the fog is the one causing that you see the streaks and volumetric light effects. So like actual visible light thanks to kind of a foggy thing. And then we have the sky. Now we went through this before, but let's again check it real quick. So again, we are in the graphics now, project setting graphics, which is another important panel together with the project settings quality. So quality and graphics, here you can handle a lot of stuff like decals, HDRP sky, and other stuff regarding the camera or the environment, etc. So for the decals, you can go in the camera section, turn off the decal, and yeah, it's going to look less realistic, but also less heavy. So all these effects, they are contained into the profiles. and the levels. Now another thing is the volume. So there are three types of volume: default, global, local. We explored the global and the local in the previous video. So we're gonna see now the default, and also we're gonna go back to a global volume. We're gonna create one to see how it works. So to access the default volumes, which are by default, you can go to Edit, Project Settings, Graphics again, and go in the HDRP global settings. And this is gonna affect all these things right here, like the camera and the motion blur, the color correction, and a lot of stuff. So this is impacting your scene throughout the scene. So it's not limited, it's infinite. It goes everywhere into the scene, and it's gonna override also some other volumes. So volumes can override one another. So one volume can override another volume. So if I go here, this is the default profile in the volume, in the graphics. And if I go in the exposure, for example, the exposure section, if I do fixed, you can see it's changing there, the exposure. And this is the physical camera exposure. So this is one example on how this will affect everything. It doesn't affect here the fixed exposure though. So probably there is something overriding that. So if something doesn't work here, it's maybe because we are in another volume that it's overriding this one, or maybe for other reason. But you need to consider the default volume, the global volume, which acts globally, and then the local volumes, which acts locally. And we already saw that again previously, but we're gonna quickly see something also here. So in the graphics, he's suggesting here to go into the saturation. So I'm gonna go looking for the color adjustments, and in here we have saturation. So if I drop down the saturation, just like we did in the previous video, it's gonna make it black and white. If I increase, it's gonna have vivid colors, so strong colors. You can also play with the hue in addition. I'm also gonna play with this just to show you that I am here impacting everything. Everything that is in the scene is now using this color adjustment that I just applied. And it's pretty visible because it's like pink. So if I go next, let's see what it's gonna ask us to do. So it's gonna tell us to go and here go in the hierarchy and create a new volume. So this is what we're gonna do, is we're gonna create volumes. And so these are the volumes that is using right now for the local. And so each room has its own, and then you have global that impacts everything. And probably is gonna override something. There you go. So if we go, for example, in the HDRI sky override, so let's go here. And if I turn off the sky, you can see that it's overriding what it's in the default settings. So right now, this global volume is overriding the default volume in terms of what sky I will see. And then let's go, and this here is volume 3 room. So this is a local volume that it's impacting probably some features. So we can still see pink. So this is the power of the default. It's gonna like impact everything, even though we are in another volume. So this means that the effects of the default volume are overriding the volume 3 room. And so I'm gonna follow the instruction here and try to change the exposure. So to show you that with this we can override the default. So, and read all the instructions here. I'm not reading them, so you can go through, more relaxed and read everything. So I'm gonna click here and select volume 3D room. So you can see it now. It's this big box that is kind of surrounding this room. And right click, let's get into the properties or open up the inspector panel. And here we're gonna go into the, there we go. So it's using this volume profile, and there you go. So if I start to play around here with the temperature or the exposure, is gonna override. There you go. So it's overriding the default volume and the global. There you go. So right now we are working only locally. And Now let's proceed. Okay, this is finished. Let's go on, and there's some extra information in the manual right there. Physically based lighting. Okay, this is attempting to simulate the correct behavioral light. It is basically simulating what happens in reality using real units, physical units, and using like lux and lumen as intensity units, and then use temperature for the color. And it's a really long description here, but you can read it. So by creating these real life effects, we simulate what happens in reality, and we can get more realism. So the sunlight is a light basically that is simulating the sun, so it has a precise type of intensity. So it's 100,000 lux. There you go. If you can select it in the hierarchy, and now we can rotate it also if you want to play a little bit with this direct light that simulates the sun. So it doesn't matter if you move it around, it's only matter if you rotate it, because this is not like a position light. This is kind of an infinite it's simulating the sun, so it doesn't matter where you put it, just how you rotate it. And if we go into properties, we can turn it on and off, and we can go here in the emission tab, and here we can change the intensity and the temperature. So these ones are specific for the sun. So the sun has a specific temperature and a specific intensity in terms of light source. So let's move on. And then there are other lights that are artificial lights. For example, the spotlights in the scene, and other lights that are in the scene. Now these replicate what happens in real life lights. So these are like 1600 lumen and 3500 Kelvin degrees as a temperature. And if you want to get this data, this info, if you go in a hardware store and buy or just check the the lights that are for sale, you will find all this information if you want to replicate a specific light. Now, if you go here in this description, there are also IS lights in this realistic rendering, and IS profiles are used to simulate some effects of the light that are in real life. So if you click here, you have some more information about the IS lights, and also providers here like Philips and other manufacturers. So what we are doing is actually using again some real life effects to get some real life realistic simulation. Next one is the exposure. So exposure works in combination with lighting, so it's really important. We already worked in some occasion with the exposure, and now we're going to do another example. And essentially it's the amount of light that you get into the camera, or also when you use your eyes, the eyes will adjust if the scenario is darker or brighter. And so also your camera needs to be adjusted with the shutter. So if you have a bigger opening, more light will come in. If you have a smaller, less light will come in. So you can do fixed. This means that you can adjust it manually, like you are adjusting in the camera, in the photo camera or in the video camera. Or you can do automatic, so it's gonna figure out automatically which is the correct balance of the exposure. So the illumination, it's a combination between lighting and exposure or other camera settings. Now let's do this other exercise. So here we're gonna create a volume. So we're gonna do another thing we never done. So we're gonna go in the hierarchy, and so also we will see how we can override. So plus, click on the plus, go into the volume and choose global volume. So this is gonna work globally. And I'm gonna type a name here just to customize it. So I'm gonna type GVJB, which is gonna be global volume JB. And then I'm gonna click and drag this into the lining. So to keep things organized, manage, and nice and clean, keep this hierarchy if you want to work with this scene, but also take inspiration where it's going to be the time to create your scene. If you build a nice and well structure, everything will be better. So I'm going to go into properties or inspector for this, and you can see this is global. So the priority will define how much it will override the other. So if you put like 1000, it's probably going to be the higher number here, and it's going to override every other volume. So in the priority, you can give priorities to the various volumes. And so here I'm going to create a new volume profile, and here I'm going to add a new override. And this is going to be exposure. So again, global means that it's not going to have limits, it's going to work everywhere. And now you can see that if I change the exposure, this is going to affect everything. And the fixed now is actually overriding, it's actually working, because now it's overriding, it's not being overwritten by something else. And also we have other parameters here like compensation, etc. But essentially they simulate what happens in the cameras in real life. Then you can add more. So you can, for example, work in post-processing. And let's add, for example, again, a color adjustment, like post-process stuff like hue again. We can change the color again from pink to orange or something else, and we can adjust the contrast. So everything we do here in this global volume will override globally the whole scene, unless there is another volume. There we go. If we go in the outside here in the external part of this scene, now it's too much. There is too much light, because the fixed exposure we choose for the interiors cannot be good for the exteriors, because in the exterior we have more light. So if we're using fixed, we need to every time adjust this manually. And you probably don't want to do that in a game or in a simulation or in a application. So you probably want to use automatic, so it will fix automatically, it will adjust automatically, or also automatic histogram as is suggested here. And there you go. So it's just a matter of defining volumes. If you don't want to use volumes, you can just address the default volumes and that's it. And we're gonna stop here. We're gonna continue in the next lesson. So subscribe to stay updated. Join the channel if you wanna thank us, support us, and check our other video courses and video guides. Thanks for watching and see you in the next lesson.